sourdough beef empanadas with beef and vegetables. These are so cozy, a classic Filipino dish. Hi everyone, my name is Janelle and you're watching Everyday Jane, where I make simple homemade food that is easy and delicious. And you know, because I'm from the Philippines, often it's inspired by the flavors of the Philippines, which brings us to today's recipe. I'm making sourdough Filipino empanadas, and there are a lot of steps here, so let's get this started. So these sourdough empanadas start actually the night before, so that it needs a little bit of organization. And as I mentioned, this is going to be a sourdough empanada, which is just going to bump up that delicious flavor. Specifically Filipino empanada dough, you're gonna find it to be a little bit breadier, a little bit fluffier, but I still wanted to incorporate a little bit of that traditional flaky pastry bit. So it's kind of a combination of both. We're gonna start with the dough here. I've got 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and to this, I'm going to add some butter, a 1/2 cup, going right into the bowl. So you're going to break up these big chunks of butter. I'm sliding them through my fingers like this. And what happens when you do that is you're making sort of these long shards of butter in here. And you just keep going until you've kind of broken up all the pieces of butter and everything is starting to resemble sort of a shaggy, wet sand kind of look, but still maintaining some of the chunkiness of the butter. Take the time to put on some music, enjoy, light a fall scented candle. Woo! Fruit fly. It is incorporated, but not completely. Add a little bit of oil into this recipe. Just add 1 tablespoon. I'm just gonna eyeball it. Need a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We're actually going to use 3 tablespoons of sugar. I know that looks like a lot, but empanada dough for Filipinos is slightly sweet. We're also gonna use a little bit of extra leavening here in the form of baking powder, so 1.5 teaspoons. And then we're going to add the sourdough part of this, which is 1 cup of fed sourdough mixture. So if you could take a look here, that is what you call fed sourdough. It's bubbly, it's risen, it's perfect to use. So I'm gonna use 1 cup of that. We're going to add an egg, beaten. Okay, so we're just gonna take our time and mix that together. And as you can see, I'm working it through, but it's looking like it might need a little bit of liquid. So I'm gonna add a bit of milk. You can add water, not a big deal. I think about 2 tablespoons should be enough for me. And you know what, I'm probably just gonna switch over to using my hands at this point. Start folding this dough in. Now, one thing you notice is that I'm doing this right in the bowl. So I try to avoid messing up a whole counter space. As you can see, it's coming together, and here we have it. So this dough is actually ready to go. And we're going to put that in the fridge overnight because that's how the flavor of the sourdough develops. So I'm gonna put some cling film over this, put it in the fridge. But for the purposes of our video today, I have one that I already made yesterday. So here I am at my hot plate station, and I'm going to start with the filling of the empanada. It's so good, full of flavor, and I'm gonna start by adding my olive oil into my hot cast iron pan. We're going to add 500 grams of ground beef. It is sizzling, and leave it. So we're just gonna let it cook until we get some crispy bits, and then move on. But check out that color. So 1 small onion, or I did a 1/2 a red onion, whatever you desire. And then we're also gonna use about 4 cloves of chopped garlic. This might be a little bit more than 4, but you know how it works, right? With recipes, just add as much as your heart desires, and this Filipino heart always wants more garlic. So I'm just going to saute the onions, the garlic, and the beef, how divine, together for just a few minutes until that softens slightly. Create a space in the middle to add 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. And what we're doing here is just layering on that delicious flavor. And I really want to get that tinny tomato paste flavor out of this tomato paste. So I'm gonna start with just kind of cooking it on direct heat, stir it through. And next, we're going to add a little bit of vinegar, just because I think it helps with that kind of beefy meat flavor to just really bring that kind of balance, a little bit of freshness. You can also use actual lemon as well, whatever you have on hand. And I'm just gonna put about a tablespoon, maybe 2. I really like things a little bit tangy. Now we're going to add some diced carrots. So as you can see, this is about, I don't know, a little over half a cup, but it's 1 carrot diced. And we're also going to be adding some potato in there. So this is par-cooked potatoes. I already added some water to these diced potatoes, as well as put in the microwave for about 10 minutes, and I stirred it in between. So that's just gonna give us our head start there. Just the potatoes, but if some of the water comes in, that's perfect. That's what we want. We've got about 1.5 cups of carrots in here, or of potatoes in here. Yeah. I really want some of that potato water in there because we need that moisture to cook the rest of the vegetables. So at that point, I'm just gonna splash. So a total of about 1/2 cups of potato water. So we're going to add 3 tablespoons of soy sauce right in this mixture, and that's gonna give us our salty, umami flavor. You know, the heat's been going on at about medium high the whole time, and what I'll do is just put the lid on so that the potatoes can continue to cook, and so can the carrots. And we'll have the lid on for maybe about 10 minutes, stirring for a few times in between until the carrots and the potatoes are tender. I'm gonna open this up. It's gonna look so good. Ooh, yeah, so most of that potato water has actually evaporated. And at this point, it would be a really good time to add our green peas. So we're gonna use about 1/2 cup of that, a little less, I think is in here. And the next ingredient, which is just that little bit controversial. It's raisins. So I like them in my empanadas, but if you don't, you can leave them out. So I'm gonna put about 1/2 cup of raisins right in here. All right, so let's taste this, see where we are. I recommend you do the same. That's really good. It's gonna need some more salt for me. The thing is that empanada outside, so the bread, the pastry, that's going to be really sort of sweet. And then this is going to be so savory. The pairing of them together, all in one little handheld pocket, is perfect. All right, so I think this is done. We're gonna let this cool for, you know, however long it takes to be sort of room temperature. Sometimes I like to pop it in the fridge because when it's a little cold, it's easier to wrap. So do what you need to do. So I have my dough that's been in the fridge overnight, and then I also have my filling that has completely cooled. If you really wanted to be ahead of the game, you would do the dough and the filling on the same day, so that the next day, all you're doing is this step, which is filling and baking, and that would be a pretty good day. I have my dough right in here. All right, and we're gonna make about 12 decent sized empanadas with this. Just gonna sprinkle my board here with some flour, and then I'm gonna grab my dough ball right here, and I'm going to roll this sort of in a cylinder. I'm just estimating here, you could definitely weigh each single dough ball to make sure that you get the right amount. So I'm gonna slice it down the middle. Let's just mar it for a bit, see if it's right. And then each piece is going to be 6. So I'm gonna do again right in the middle. It's about that. And then we're gonna try to make it 6 pieces. So I'm not the best at estimating, but these are my homemade empanadas. I really am not too concerned with making them exactly perfect sizes. There we go. Again, right in the middle. Okay, and we're gonna roll these into circles and put them aside. So just circles like this, and we're gonna move them aside. Go flatten down my dough here. Try to keep a circular shape. My extra large rolling pin. You're not going for the thinnest rollout ever, right? You you really want this empanada to still have a bit of thickness because you want something sturdy to hold in that really hearty beef filling that we made. What I'm gonna do is focus now on the edges. All right, so keeping the middle thicker, I'm just going to quickly take my rolling pin and thin out the edges ever so slightly. And now it looks like a great big mess, but that's okay. Just sort of thinner edges and then thicker right in the middle. To keep these ready to go is I'm just going to flour a plate, put this guy here. So I've got my oven preheating at 375 degrees and we are ready to make these empanadas. Exciting moment. So what's really great about this technique is that, look, this empanada wrapper is so jaggedy on the edges, it's not perfectly round, and usually what most people would do would be use a round cutter to make sure the edges are perfect, but the way that we're gonna wrap it, it's really not needed, and the beauty about home cooking is that they don't actually all have to be exactly perfect. But if that's you, go ahead, at this point, use something to slice out a perfect circle. So I've got my trigger cookie scoop here, it's about 1.5 inches. I'm going to use about 2.5 scoops full, and when it looks like that, we're going to just fold it over. Look at that. We're gonna pinch. Empanadas are all, they're gonna fall. Okay. I'm going to go for that egg wash. So this is going to keep them looking really just nice and golden when they're baked. So into the oven, these go for about 20 to 25 minutes until they're golden brown at 375 degrees. And then we have empanadas, folks. These guys are still a little bit warm. I'm so excited to dig in. If you notice, slight little bit of flakiness, but it's also a little bit bready. It's an interesting texture, but always just so good. Henry, shh. Thank you. All right, let's dig in. That is so good. That's a really delicate texture, but not flaky, buttery, like a pie crust, because I think that would be just too much competing with this Moorish filling. It's got a good amount of flavor because of that sourdough. If you made sourdough starter in quarantine but haven't really used it much, try this way. It combines my two loves, right? Like Filipino food as well as slow, home-cooked meals like sourdough. So I'm so excited to be sharing with you my Filipino beef empanada recipe, and I hope you really enjoy it. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.